next presentation is going to be Garrett, and he is going to be discussing Murphy Road. And yeah. So be polite, and just so everybody knows, Murphy Road is absolutely necessary for the entire southeast area of Bend, including the 37-acre park, which construction starts next year, and the high school and junior high, which are going to basically start a year or so after that. Not counting all the homes and businesses and everything that the city wants to build on the southeast side of town, which is going to be our third presentation for the evening.
Thanks for the introduction. So my name is Garrett Sabourin. I'm a project engineer with the City of Bend Engineering Department. I work for Tom here. Karen was talking a little bit about some of the future projects that we have that will be coming to the city. What I'm working on currently, thanks to council approving some funding here and prioritizing this project, is revisiting the Murphy Corridor project. We're currently in the planning phases of it, so I don't have a really long presentation tonight, but what I'd like to cover at a high level is give kind of an overview of the project, talk a little bit about what our schedule is planned to be, the team that we're looking to build, and then talk a little bit about opportunities for public engagement, or I should say the need for public engagement while we're proceeding through the project here. Before I get into it too far, I'm curious by a show of hands how many people here were previously involved at a civic level back in 07, 09, before we went into the recession and reprioritized some of this funding. Okay, you all have opportunities now. So this is a transportation project, a transportation improvement project. And as James mentioned, one of the highest priorities of the project is making the extension from the current terminus at Broster House, so you see right there, to the east over to 15th Street. That would include an overcrossing at the BNSF rail and connection with intersection improvements at both of those two, being Broster House and 15th. Just kind of looking at the corridor in the way that we're kind of breaking it up into the two segments, is you have that first piece, which is the initial prioritization or initial priority for the city, being the extension, and have highlighted in black, and then the western half of it, which extends from the improvements that ended a couple of years ago at the parallel intersection to the east over to Broster House. And just to talk about what those are at a high level is looking at several intersection improvements, access to driveways or other intersecting local streets, and then a modernization of that existing corridor to make it, as you would call a complete street, with addressing all the vehicular needs, access needs, pedestrian needs, and bicycle needs. So looking at all modes of transportation through there. Two things.
Here, I have a question.
Yep. Oh, sure.
When you said overcrossing at the BNSF, what do you mean by overcrossing? Is it actually up and over, or is it on the ground again?
Yeah, a bridge is what we're looking at there, and that right of way was. There's a lot of history back in the 07, 09, but that right of way was purchased back at that point, and there was some conceptual drawings and actual design of a bridge overcrossing, and that's the same design more or less that we're proceeding with now.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. You're welcome.
Currently, the southeast interceptor goes essentially where it's going, and that's already been installed.
Yep. The two bullets that I had highlighted at the bottom here, I want to emphasize those, and I will continue to as we go through these couple slides that I have, and as we go through the design process, being that the team that we're negotiating with right now is a design-build team, meaning that we're hiring our designer and our contractor together as one team to help us with phasing the project and help us with delivering this faster to the community. So typically, traditionally, we do our design. Takes a couple of years to get through that process, and then we go into construction. And so it extends that overall period, and sometimes it extends the cost of it too, depending on what we're looking at for our local markets. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight here is on the bottom is we're in the planning stage right now, so we're currently negotiating with that design build team. We're hoping to have them under contract in December, and we're hoping to break ground as July of next year, 2019. So who knows exactly where that breaking ground is right now, because we don't have the team on board. We haven't gone through the alternatives analysis. Is that what the questions were?
My
No.
question was, is the extension the start place and then you're gonna modernize the rest of it, or?
It's something that we need to give a little bit more consideration. The initial priority, the way that we have it programmed in our capital budget right now, is that our priority is Broster House to 15.
Yeah,
However, there may be some efficiencies once we get a team on board and start looking at the different, or going through our alternatives analysis, maybe efficiencies with, say, moving material from that modernization over to fill for the bridge. Some ways that we can save money. We'll talk about that during our alternatives analysis phase. We'll bring that to council to help them with giving us some guidance on how to proceed, but right now, we think our focus is over there, but
and
I don't
then,
want to block us in.
second part is, any idea how long until the whole thing is like done? Are we 10 years talking, or?
Let's go to the next slide and we'll start talking a little bit about
Okay,
that.
thank you.
So this breaks it up into a real high level of kind of the three phases that we're looking at. You can see at the bottom, alternatives analysis, design, construction, with some date ranges there that we're hoping that all the stars align. We're hoping that we can get our funding lined up, that our design progresses at the right speed, and that we have the community support and buy-in to proceed. So the big challenge is biggest is probably the funding. It's getting all the funding moved forward to meet this accelerated schedule. So what I want to highlight here is a little bit of the opportunity and the need for the public engagement. I asked about that at the beginning, and I want to highlight it here now, because typically when we go through these design processes, the more input that we can get from the surrounding community, the better that the project ends up being. You folks here or other people in the community are the ones who use this corridor on a daily basis. You know how it works best for you. You see the functionality of it. There's a lot of little nuances that are sometimes challenging for us to see during the design process. We have engineers on board who are looking at the data, looking at the traffic loading, looking at the turning movements, and can figure out lane configurations, widths, but when it comes to tying things into local streets or to your individual property or things like that, it's really beneficial to get that input to get us all in line. So this first phase, the alternatives analysis, December through May, we're planning a couple open houses during that period. We don't have the dates set just yet. I'll get to some contact information next where you guys can get regular email updates, and you'll be getting probably more than enough contact from us during the design process as well. But the intent of those is to start talking about the different options for laying out this corridor, kind of looking at the costs and benefits of various typical sections, various impacts to right-of-way, how we tie into individual properties, and getting your input, solicited input through those opportunities. We're thinking late January would be one, and then probably another one sometime in March. Once we get through that process, we'll be looking at going to council sometime in April or May for this alternatives analysis work session to come to them with a preferred option and try to get some guidance to move into design. And then as we proceed to design, that's when we start getting into the real intricate details between right-of-way and tying into your individual private property for anyone who neighbors the corridor. So we'll have several more open houses there. We'll have a lot of small meetings, group meetings. We'll be reaching out to community members. And in addition, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a website set up right now where you can get online and sign up to get regular project updates. We have a hotline number that I'll have on the next page. And I put my business card out here. Use it sparingly, please. But we will have a project email set up here in the next few weeks as well, which will help with you connecting with us too. And then I talked a little bit about the phase delivery. That's just in reference to how we're delivering this project, being a design build. Since we have a designer and contractor on at the same time, as we get through our alternatives and figure out what makes the most sense for sequencing this project, we're going to start moving on that. So we're hoping to figure that out here in the first half of next year and start breaking ground sometime in the later half of next year. With the thought being that the priority is going to be the extension and then moving to the modernization.
Garrett, question for you.
Yes, yes, sir.
On your design up there, I noticed one thing that's lacking on it is to go down Murphy and be able to hit north on the parkway.
Oh, the ODOT. Yeah.
How come that's
Yeah.
not in the same project?
That is a separate project. I know you're talking about the entrance ramp for northbound. I'm not sure where that falls with ODOT. I don't know if anybody knows.
I don't know where it's at in their priority.
Yeah,
It's an ODOT project.
yeah,
It's no longer a City of Bend project.
ODOT.
ODOT. That's all ODOT right away. That's an ODOT prioritized project. I just don't know where or when it falls in their list.
I think we'll find out more when the Parkway plan is complete.
Good call, yeah. When's that scheduled to be complete, do you know?
I don't know.
It's a 2 year.
2 years. And then lastly here, yes, sorry.
No, it's a good flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
How well does your completion align with the finish of the schools that are gonna be built?
This, we're hoping, well, we'll see what happens with funding. Our big, as we talked about with the priorities, we have the extension and the modernization. The extension, a critical date for us and a date that we have in the contract as one of our milestones, is to have that extension done by the fall of 2021, which is when the school anticipates opening their school as well. So that would be our latest date that we would want to be hitting to complete our improvements, knowing that there's also a lot of coordination for us to do while they're completing their improvements of the roundabouts on Knott Road as well, and the Parks District, who I believe is going to start in late 2020 with the Alpenglow Park as well. So we want to try to coordinate with them as much as possible, especially things that are going to impact your daily traffic, with sequencing those and trying to come up with ways to navigate around our construction. You know, there's a lot of coordination to be done there.
This is
Yes.
gonna have an enormous impact on 15th. Where is that in this conversation?
As far as construction phasing or after things are done?
Traffic, increasing traffic and all the school and Murphy Road and everything's gonna dump into 15th. Where's all that traffic gonna,
But they're gonna
Go.
be roundabouts, things that people can get through
Yeah.
15 a lot easier.
Yeah, so that's part of the modeling. They just as part of the TSP effort, they updated the model for 2040 projections. We do with determining what is the appropriate intersection treatment, say for 15th Street. So is it a single lane roundabout? Is it a double lane roundabout? Do we need 2 lanes, 3 lanes? So we're looking at those specific volumes and projections with consideration of the development that's taking place around there and the additional traffic that we'll be seeing going across the BNSF rail.
cause right now, trying to cross 15th is a little dicey most times of the day.
That's true.
And there's a
Yeah.
lot of traffic just from all the Polish homes, let alone adding all this other stuff and then Murphy, so I guess I just wanted to see something about the conversation about how this impacts 15th and where it happens.
So like the more that they build, is the population, are you foreseeing the population not building for the current, cars going through, which are bad enough?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we look at the current, so we look at current year counts, which is what we just recently collected. You may have seen people out there, and then we're forecasting for those future projected, but also just thinking about, what we're looking at for these other modes of transportation, being pedestrians, walking, or bicycles. Those are things that are evaluated as well, and there's a shared use path that's in the TSP that would be on the east side of the BNSF rail. There's a shared use path planned by Parks that goes all the way from the school on the west side of 15th across the intersection improvements at the Brossenhaus roundabout, or most likely be a roundabout, up across the irrigation canal where the Parks Department is currently designing a bridge crossing there, and then hopefully the city may be helping support extending that all the way up to the current terminus. It's like 1,700 feet north of that irrigation canal. So
Parks
there's
is
several
putting
shared.
Something over the canal?
They're looking at a pedestrian bridge across the canal. Yeah. that would connect up to a shared use path that would go all the way down to the school, and then a separate shared use path that would go, connect over to the east side of the BNSF rail right away, and also go down along that easement.
I think rather than have
All right.
sidewalks
Yeah,
with bike lanes, I think there's some people that are pushing for a big path on one side of the road, because they think will just be, I do think it would be safer than basically having another sidewalk and a bike lane necessarily, giving another option for safety purposes.
Unless it goes through your subdivision.
There is no
unless it's only
subdivision
6
there.
feet wide, which you can't even get 2 people
Right.
across.
Those are, the shared uses are 10.
And Parks and Rec wants to eminent domain that Ditch Riders Road through Nottingham. That's a subdivision.
That is, but not the part where we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Is this proposed a 2-lane or a 4-lane road for the future?
The existing road, or are you talking about the extension?
The whole thing through there?
So,
Because I
Yeah.
live behind Crown Villa, and the amount of traffic and the major screw-ups when they did the sewer was hell on us for 2 years. And this looks like this is gonna be a 5-year screw-up for us.
talking about detours during construction,
Yeah, because that's my only way out,
and,
down Brocker House.
yeah, that's gonna be, one of the important things for us to be looking at during construction. And with, maybe there's opportunities for us to phase it, maybe there's opportunities for us to keep more of the roadway open than they did with SEI, because that was pretty deep excavation, deep construction. Those are some details that we'll get into, and it'd be a good spot to get some input from you. As far as, what that typical section is, how many lanes it is, if we're looking at medians, 2 lanes, 3 lanes, that's what we need to be working through in this first few months of this alternatives analysis, is looking at those different considerations, how much right-of-way we need with a larger lane configuration, what those costs are, kind of weighing out those cost benefits. Yes, sir.
You've identified 2 different sections of Murphy Road. What is going to comprise the improvement section of the part that is between 97 and I believe Brosser House? That's already outlined in blue, but what's the planned improvement of that section, other than the roundabouts that you identified?
It's 97 to Peril, that's what they completed a couple of years ago. That's in the brown there.
Right.
And then from Peril over to Broster House is what we're calling the modernization segment.
What will encompass the modernization?
Yeah, so as far as what we're looking at for numbers of lanes, lane widths, I'm not sure. That's what we're gonna work through in the alternatives analysis. The additional part to that I would be confident in that is gonna be included is the addition of bike lanes and continuous sidewalk on both sides of the road. But we need to work through the alternatives of what we're looking at for medians and turn lanes, and number of lanes.
Well, I'm wondering how you're going to expand the road, since in one section, the houses come right up to the edge of the road.
Yeah.
And if you're planning to expand the road, where does eminent domain come in? I don't see a whole lot of opportunity to expand the road in that section.
Yeah, and so the previous effort that was done in 07, 09, they came to a concept through that segment of road from Peril to Broster House that was a 3-lane section. And we have about a 60-foot wide right-of-way there. So if anybody's seen the 14th Street construction that just took place in the residential area, that's a 60-foot wide right-of-way. So that's a good comparison of what you're looking at. There we have a 2-lane section, here it would be a 3. We need to go through that alternatives analysis and basically take a look and see what would those right-of-way impacts be? How would that disturb the neighboring residential property? What would that cost be or potential displacement? And have those conversations with the community and get that input, get that feedback, and bring that to city council with this impact to adjacent properties and cost information, and help guide them in giving us direction to proceed.
So does that 60-foot wide right-of-way extend into the front yards of the homes that were built in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years maybe? On the north side of Broster, of Murphy?
If you want, I have my card here. If there's
Okay,
a specific
fine.
property that you're thinking of, I'd be happy to, get on the phone, or maybe we can sit
Okay.
down and look at something specific and, yeah.
Last
It's
but
hard for
not
me to,
least-
hard for me to say what that is without knowing the specific property.
Last but not least, I see a overabundance of focus placed on bike lanes throughout the city. And I'll tell you, I drive frequently from east, north to the west side, and I can count on two hands the number of people that I see driving over a 10-mile section of the roads that I cover. And yet there's the width of the bike lanes narrows the lanes of the cars quite a bit. And, you know, people don't drive to work or school with any frequency with bikes, and yet cars travel. But there seems to be a very high focus within the city on bike lanes. I don't see anyone during the winter time driving the bike lanes to work or anywhere. And the tourists also don't come here on bicycles. They come here with vehicles and then ride around as a recreation, but not as a way of commuting over here. So where does the city stand on mitigating that to some extent? Because I think it's really overemphasized for what it actually contributes to the transportation within the city. In my opinion, and I'm relatively a newcomer, the number of people using a bicycle to get anywhere is probably less than 2%.
This sounds more like a larger policy question and, transportation plan question, and for me, I'm just a project engineer.
You're a pretty good politician. Some of these requirements for alternative transportations are not just a city requirement, they come from higher up. And when I mean higher up, I mean state and federal concepts of how to decrease vehicle mileage in some of this. So I know Karen knows about some of this, and she hides her head.
No, I'm just saying, I told him I would talk to you afterwards.
Oh, yeah, so perfect.
Well, and also keeping in mind, we were having a school put in nearby this, and a park.
Yeah, school and a park. Other
One more
questions?
2 cents worth of, I don't know who did the paving job on Parallel, but kudos to them. That was the worst road in the county, and now it's one of the best.
I'll pass
So
that
you
on.
might
I'm not
wanna
sure who did either, but.
Get them tied up and do it in the future here.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Budget, what's the construction budget, not design and all that, the construction budget for this? That'll give us a sense of what the scale of this is gonna be capacity-wise, I think.
Yeah, our total budget for the project right now is $32 million.
That's total.
That's what's been approved by council, total. And that's the way that we have it scheduled in our capital program, is for project
Do
total.
you know what the breakout is in terms of just the construction portion of it, as opposed to the engineering and design and all that?
We're high level right now, so in that programming is a 50% contingency in our estimates. So it'd be hard for me to pinpoint a number until we start figuring out what our alternatives are and figuring out what our actual cross section is gonna be.
You're popular.
Turns out, Tom wants to come up for some too.
You're doing great.
Yes, sir.
As a comparison, you mentioned Murphy, and then you mentioned 14, and I know we have Empire that was improved, and Reed Market was improved, all great improvements. What's the width of Reed Market improvement compared to the one you're planning to do between Peril and Rossertown? The road width?
I'm not
You
sure.
mentioned 60.
Of
is
road
Reed
width.
60?
For 60, I was talking about right-of-way width, so what we have for available right-of-way to complete public improvements within.
How does Reed compare?
Reed's 80.
But is that what you're asking, is right-of-way or road, though? Yeah, I think
I
he was
mean,
asking
I had
road.
those two confused, but
Yeah.
when you have a certain width to work with, is Reed the same as you have on Peril Gloucester House, is that width the same?
Reed, as Tom said here, Reed was 80 foot wide in most areas. I think it's
Correct.
wider in some. It goes up to 100 or 100.
And then it goes down by the canal, it gets narrow.
It goes narrow by the canal. Tom's saying he's
Yeah.
more aware of that. As far as this corridor goes, it's 60 to 70 feet between Broster House and Peril, and then it's 80 feet when we get to the east of the roundabout. As properties have redeveloped, they've contributed some frontage along that segment of road. Yes, ma'am.
Will your construction have to coordinate with the train schedules?
There's gonna be a lot of requirements for the train schedules. We have to have, both the contractor and the city will have agreements with the NSF during construction, and we'll have our maintenance agreements after construction too. Yes,
Can you go to the next slide
yes.
of the, next one? That one. My driveway is on the back of my house. How are you gonna keep people from riding their bike and walking their dogs on my driveway behind my house? All of our garages are on the back of our house. So how are you gonna protect our property?
I don't know which one's your property,
Well, if you
or,
look, you can see the railroad tracks.
okay?
Okay.
Oh, you're saying over here?
You see where all those boulders are
Yeah.
that go up?
In the middle.
Do you see that big
Along
white
the
thing of
southeast
snow?
These boulders?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay, so that's my driveway.
okay.
How are you gonna keep people off my driveway? Or are you gonna deny me access to my driveway?
That's private property. We have an 80-foot wide right-of-way there. So our intentions would be to work within that right-of-way unless during construction we needed some type of an easement where we would then negotiate with you to see if there's a way that we could use that as
There's
access
no other
during
way to get
construction.
to my garage.
At this time, it's hard for me to say, as we go through design, if there is some needs during construction, that would be something we'd contact you directly and see if there is any way
Well,
to
we
make it.
endured all of that, was it sewer installation?
The SEI sewer.
Yeah, we endured all of that for years. And kind of one of my questions, wonderful.
Yeah.
They were great. I highly recommend them to everyone that does any construction. And they were very thoughtful, but there's been other contractors that have done work prior to them, and they were terrible.
Yeah, we've had good experiences with Taylor, several of our project managers, the contractor we've had on this. I think we've had just as comparable experiences, very courteous to the community, very professional, very good at keeping the work site. I think it was comparable.
Yeah, I just want to know, once it's completed, how are you going to keep all those kids and bicycle riders off my driveway? Are we going to put a wall behind our alley, or what are we going to do?
We'll have to look at that specific one, maybe when we get to the open houses, and we can look at our alternatives there. If we're looking at the bridge approach in that section, we might be building an MSD wall right there.
Has the parks
I'm not sure exactly.
finalized that property with the pedestrian bridge over the tracks?
I don't know. I know they do have that in their concept, and that's to the
That would be
south of Murphy.
Yeah.
So that's where their trail is intended for their shared use path, and then that connects up to the east side of Frost House intersection, so. I think,
So, if you haven't heard, Parks is trying to figure out or get approval from the railroad and whatnot to actually put in an individual pedestrian bridge from the park over the tracks. So I don't know if that'd be.
Well, my house is further down, closer to Gloucester House and Murphy Road. Okay,
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to, there are people and other, like I said, the Parks Department that's actually trying to figure out other ways to get people over the tracks without having them go through what's necessarily there or not there. But I don't think any of that's been decided yet.
you can talk more about your property at the open house, or you can grab my card there, shoot me an email, send me your address, take a closer look. This gentleman, and then this gentleman.
I'm not sure whether I've read this or heard this from anybody in the planning. What's the anticipation of the traffic flow on Reed Market? Is there any relief in this plan, or is it pretty much gonna stay what it is?
I can't comment on that, I'm not sure. We completed the traffic analysis along this corridor, and I think people are anticipating that it might relieve some stress during when VNS BNSF is using the rail and blocking up that intersection. People might come down to Broster House, or they wouldn't be able to go down maybe 15 from the other way. I think there is a possibility of that when that queue starts to build up, but I don't know specifically.
Yeah, building on what this man here, I'm also a homeowner who's gonna be right on the left side of the road going in. And in terms of going over the tracks for light pollution, noise pollution, safety, car accidents, I mean, if you're building an elevated bridge, if a car goes off the road in the wintertime, you're crashing right into her back window, essentially. So, and then obviously, I mean, I've sat in the traffic on Reed with the train, so to say that it might not be a relief valve, I think this is gonna be a huge relief valve for when there is a train crossing. We're gonna see a lot of traffic, and there's just gonna be, you're asking for a lot in a little area, basically right through two major neighborhoods. And I think you need to evaluate the pros and cons list better, no offense. I just think there's a lot of negative. And you said it's essential to do. Road construction takes 2 years, and then you're gonna build schools. It's gonna take 5 years to build. We're looking at 7 years of construction with getting overflow traffic from Reed through our backyard. We're looking at 8 years of noise, light. I mean, my back fence was spray painted a few weeks ago, the 4th of July, and there's not even a road put in yet. So I can only imagine what lights will be coming through my back window. I feel like you guys really need to look at your list to see how essential this road really is. Because to me, it's just, in my opinion, that's a lot.
I think the next presentation, it might not make you happy, but it might address some of this, because the whole southeast section of town is part of the concept. No, I mean, I know he knows certain things, but the next two presenters are gonna hit you with some more stuff. It's better to know a long time ahead of it, so you can make decisions and be part of groups and citizen,
I mean, look at home values too. I mean, home values are gonna take a huge hit. I mean, that's.
You're not questioning
so this
need for this road, are you?
I mean,
There's no question it's needed.
I mean, I don't understand.
Arterial across town other than the ones on the north.
this
Set in
corridor.
stone, I think it's gonna be done. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a moot point to argue that.
Okay.
This is my last slide. I just wanted to touch on it. So, just touch on light and noise. We are going to be looking at that. People aren't going to fly over the bridge. We are going to make sure that we're trying to address any light pollution going over and noise. As far as this being a connection, it's been a priority east-west connection for over a decade, and there's been some recent development with the UGB remand with a 15th Street Opportunity Area expansion in Southeast Bend that makes this a really critical route, amongst the fact that we also have emergency services in the area that needs it to help with their response times and addressing citizen emergency needs. The only thing I want to highlight really quick at the end, is we set up our project phone number here in the bottom left side of the screen. If there's any concerns that come up or any questions that you have, feel free to call it. We get a message, comes to my email, someone else's email, we'll try to respond within a couple days. And then we have our project website set up. And if you'd like to be on our receive our regular updates on a monthly or bi-weekly basis, there's a spot towards the bottom of the webpage where you can put in your name and email address. And there'll be other ways coming up for you to contact us. We'll be spreading tons of information. So.
We'll include that in our next newsletter too for you.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.